Welcome to the turn of night. The young man exhaled in the lighted path. Broken windows casted a hateful stare as he noticed the dripping blood and torn jeans at his knee. It felt like time had been frozen. They'd really done it this time. All hell had indeed broken loose. They had all scattered. Between the autumn chill and the thrill of crime, the siren lights looked almost hypnotic. Added to the fact that he could not make out the echoing voices at the end of the alleyway, he felt as though a fever had been broken suddenly and violently, and now it was time to come alive. To his relief, he found he could cut through the empty space at the side of the lane. The leather jacket was keeping the cold away nicely. As he took off running towards home, he could see the skeleton decorations in his periphery, almost as if he was running a gauntlet. The lanterns that had been set out for the forthcoming holiday had dimmed, along with most of the lights along the back streets. The bluish hue of TV screens seeped out of homes, broadcasting TV reruns, nightly news, or The Late Show. He heard the sirens again as he ducked into the shadows one last time. The burning heat of uncertainty. It was time to make that final dash. Once in the safety of home, he realized that he'd lived to tell the tale, if in fact there was anything to tell at all. Was he in danger? Was it a coincidence? Who cares, he thought. Midnight was burning. He'd have 7 days to live again, to walk that line, all before the tide would shift on the Devil's Eve. The lights are on as the evening shadows are creeping in. Hopefully, you won't get caught in the turn of night. Welcome to the turn of night. I have never spoken about my hometown in great detail. Frequent updates on the neighborhood, area business, and the usual happenings among the residents are often communicated to me over various calls and social media. As you can imagine, nothing much of note, unless it's scandalous behavior that might pop up in the crime beat section of the local newspaper. Oftentimes, it's pretty much the same as when I was growing up. But every once in a while, I get told a tale by someone or catch wind of an event that is utterly fantastic compared to the daily grind of everyday life. I've not lived in that city for 23 years, let alone on that street. My brother has left periodically for work and school opportunities, although he has always returned and currently takes up residence not far from our family home. He maintains a keen awareness for local news, especially those of a bizarre nature. It was approximately a week before the Halloween season that he explained a very odd occurrence that is literally up the street from where we'd grown up. I was in town for a short visit, so I was able to see where this incident took place in person. They had to call in some people, one of them a member of some church. He didn't know which denomination, but apparently the residents of this house asked for help from a few sources. They had a sound tech friend come in and record some audio, as proof that it wasn't the house making noises, loud neighbors, or radio signals. The house in question was on the same street, and perhaps a minute or two walk from where we were presently enjoying a cup of coffee. It might be the same thing, the thing that would come after me when I was a kid. I knew what he had meant. It seems that an entity had followed us from one house to another when our family moved from an older part of the city. His experience might have been dismissed as mere bad dreams by our parents, but I never doubted him. As adults, we had discussed it in great detail, and met with members of a family named Sullivan that had lived in our old house previously. I agreed that it is possible that the spectral presence might be the same and that they are known for latching on to certain persons. But I had some questions. For one, what caused it to leave our home so abruptly? Secondly, why would it wait more than 30 years to reappear in a house less than a mile away? We walked from the edge of the driveway and started towards the house where the haunting took place. Look, I've studied more than enough of the paranormal, maybe more than you, as I was the one it went after. Our house, our lives, we weren't exactly in the best place back then. There was constant arguing. Mom and Dad split, and we moved away for 6 months. When we returned, we were happier. There wasn't as much negative air for something like this to feed off of. Plus, we were teenagers. We were preoccupied with swiping beer and listening to punk rock. Whatever it was, this thing was somehow expelled and backed out of our house. As we approached the home that had recently suffered this malevolence, he continued to explain how a member of the household had heard their name called repeatedly. It sounded familiar to his situation, but I listened patiently for more. These people had tried to ignore it, but eventually everyone who resided there could not help but be painfully aware of the disembodied voices, whispered threats, and objects being thrown about. Okay, but we never had that sort of poltergeist behavior, I reasoned. Also, why would this back out of our place and move down the street just to pop up all these years later? We stopped across the street from the house. He studied it for a moment and then explained his theory. Is there a chance that it isn't the same entity? Yes, but it seems too coincidental. Before these people had moved in, there were more than a few violent episodes caused by some temporary tenants before this family bought the place outright. The entity was clearly attracted to the residual energy and found a suitable place to make its presence known. Yes, it was 30-some years later, but time is different for these beings. It would be the equivalent of 12 hours for us. I nodded at his theory, but I wasn't quite satisfied. Okay, but why that house? I'm certain bad things have happened in many places in this entire surrounding area. Why there? He looked back towards the house where we grew up, and then back to the house in question. Because a lot of studies agree on one theory in particular. The theory is that these beings always move in from the left. They almost seem to follow patterns. The bad vibes in that house were strong enough and fresh enough that it moved in, and in fact, moved in from the left. Why the left? Why not right or diagonal or something? Is it a political affiliation? He dismissed my attempt at humor and then gestured with his hands. Some do, but this particular kind will move to the left and on to the next host. It varies from one type to another, but this is what it does. I glanced back towards our childhood home, then to the house we presently observed. We both looked further up the street, pondering the time and distance of this entity's next appearance. It will come in from the left. They always do. The lights are on as the evening shadows are creeping in. Hopefully, you won't get caught in the turn of night.